ये दिख रहा है पावर पॉइंट स्लाइड दिख रहा है क्या?
यस, हाँ स्लाइड दिख रहा है।
ओके,
आपके बाद
तो
रजत का प्रेजेंटेशन है, थोड़ा जल्दी कीजिएगा।
हाँ, मैं छोटा सा ही जल्दी ही करता हूँ, तुरंत करता हूँ, 10 मिनट में हो जाएगा, चिंता मत करिए। तो बोले बाइलिंगुअल, तो मैं कोशिश करता हूँ दोनों में बोलने का, थोड़ा बहुत एनालिसिस बीच में पेपर में पढ़ लूँगा। तो जब मगध की बात होती है तो अक्सर फोकस बुद्धिज़्म पे ही होता है ज़्यादातर लोगों का, तो मैंने सोचा थोड़ा कुछ बुद्धिज़्म से अलग किया जाए। तो मगध में मैं थोड़ा सा गया बोध गया रीजन के बारे में ही बात करना चाहूँगा आज। पिछली बार तो लखीसराय पे बोला था। तो जब भी बात होती है इन जगहों की तो यही दोनों श्राइन लोगों का अटेंशन लेता है, अट्रैक्ट करता है। महाबोधि टेम्पल या कॉम्प्लेक्स, या अगर गया गए तो जो विष्णु पर टेम्पल है, तो सारा फोकस इन्हीं दोनों साइट्स पे होता है अक्सर लोगों का। तो मैं थोड़ा सा डिट्रैक्ट करता हूँ क्योंकि I want to speak today about Surya images that have been found in Gaya and its adjoining region. Within Gaya itself, there are like multiple images of multiple shrines and images of Surya. And then I've also walked around in the neighborhood in the villages of this region. And I'm going to speak probably about a few images that were found from Harahisthan, Amethi. Both of these places are right next to each other and located roughly 2 kilometers west of famous Buddhist monastic site of Kurkihar. Another site that is really important is Pali, which is in the Belaganj block. So I will try to speak about the Surya images that have been found there. Now, जब हम पूरे पैटर्न के बारे में सोचते हैं इस रीजन में सूर्या इमेजेस के डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के बेसिस पे, तो ये इमर्ज करता है कि सन वर्शिप इस रीजन में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इट्स बीन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. In a previous publication, I have written about the interreligious interactions between Buddhist and Hindu orders, where I focused largely on interactions between the Saiva, Vaishnava, and Buddhist orders and how these orders responded to each other. I focused largely on the response of Buddhist monastic institutions, which attempted to create a new hierarchy by incorporating these two Hindu orders. However, I did not discuss the significance of Saura tradition in this region, which has a long and distinguished history. It is likely that prior to the Vaishnava reformulation of Gaya in the early medieval period, it was a significant center of Shan worship, which did continue and develop a distinct form later on in this region. Gaya emerged as a center of funerary Shraddha ritual in the early centuries of the Common Era, which gradually was transformed into a Vaishnava center in the early medieval period, probably around 9th, 10th, 11th century. The earliest reference to Gaya as a center of Shraddha in the textual tradition comes from Vasishtha Dharma Sutra, which is dated to 1st century CE by Patrick Oliver. Later, the Mahabharata, the critical edition of Mahabharata, dated roughly to the Gupta period, also refers to Gaya under the name of Gaya Sirsa. This is identified as a sacred hill on the southern side of modern Gaya, which according to this epic was a place of the footprint of Savitra. Savitra is the name used commonly for Surya, which indicates Surya worship in and around Gaya from an earlier time. This hill is currently known as Brahmayoni Hill, and there is a shrine at the base of this hill which currently houses 2 images of Surya. Now, when we think about the history of Surya image, let me give you a brief overview of this region and the broader South Asia, and then I'll come back to the region. So the earliest image of Surya that we have in this region is actually on a railing pillar in Bodh Gaya. This image of Surya on his chariot has been found in Bodh Gaya on one of the pillar railings, which has been dated by Chakravarti, K.K. Chakravarti, to the 1st century BCE. Images of Surya have been found from the Gupta period onwards. The Mandsaur inscription of the time of Kumaragupta records the erection of a temple of sun in circa 437-38 CE. The Indore copper plate grant records an endowment of Deva Vishnu for the maintenance of a lamp in the temple of Surya in the circa 465-466 CE. The Gwalior inscription of the 18th year of Mihirakula records the construction of a temple of Surya. The Vardhana emperors, who may have enjoyed considerable influence in this region, were also staunch worshippers of the sun god. King Harsha used the epithet of Paramaditya Bhakta for his ancestors in his copper plate inscriptions. The Sahapur stone image inscription found from the village of Sahapur Tetrama was inscribed on the pedestal of a Surya image, which records the donation by a military officer, Baladikrita Salapaksha, under the reign of Aditya Sena, which is 7th century, third quarter of the 7th century. Another inscription found at Deo Barnarak of the reign of later Gupta king Jivitagupta II records the continuation of the grant of village Varunika to the temple of Surya. The village was previously granted by 3 successive Mokri kings for the worship of Surya. The images of Surya found from this site are roughly contemporaneous with the Jivitagupta inscription. Similarly, Surya images have also been reported from the sites of Mundeshwari and Apsad, which are dated to the 7th century of the Common Era. All of the above cited examples highlight the popularity of sun worship from the Gupta period onwards in different parts of India, and the last 3 in particular highlight the practice of sun worship in Magadha and its surrounding region. Its popularity may have resulted in the donation of land grants by Mokri and later Gupta kings, as well as patronage for the production of images by their subordinate officials or local population. So in this region itself, and I'm talking largely about Gaya and the 2 villages that I mentioned, I have at least 29 images of Surya, and I'm going to show you a few in a minute. 4 of these images, one in the sanctum of the Surya temple near the Surya Kund of Dakshin Manas tank, so that's the tank and the Surya temple there. Another at Brahmani Ghat, and that image will come in a minute. 2 images from Pali village have been reported and examined in the past by Frederick Asser, Claudine Balzi-Picron, and Bandyopadhyay. The others have not been published to my knowledge. Many of these images are still kept in the open, whereas several are plastered either inside a shrine or alongside pathways or hilltops such as Prechila. It is likely that some of these images were found through accidental digging and are therefore installed locally in a shrine of a specific neighborhood, such as the tree shrine across from the Sankata Devi temple. It is also plausible that many of these images have been moved deliberately from their original context and placed into specific shrines, which may explain multiple Surya images within a particular shrine, such as the Brahmani Ghat and Pitamaheshwara temple. I would also like to acknowledge that this is not an exhaustive list of Surya images in Gaya, since I have documented at least 5 other images in and around Vishnupada temple complex itself, which I have not included here for this analysis. So these images roughly date from the 7th to 11th, 12th century. So these are some of the 7th century ones, 7th, 8th century ones. The iconographic features of these images also affirm the data range. The earlier images, 7th, 8th centuries, are miniature in size with sturdy and stocky bodily features, lesser ornamentation, and 2 associated deities set on a separate vertical register on the back slab. The bodies in these earlier images are flat and squat. Many of these images lack other stylistic details such as 7 horses and other attendant deities. So here you have some 7th, 8th ones. You can see some 8th, 9th ones. And some images are deliberately placed next to Vishnu one, like the one here that you see where the cursor is. There is a Surya right next to 2 Vishnu images. This is near Pretashila hill, basically. Later images, 9th to 10th century, so you have 8th, 9th century, some of the images that I'm talking about. Then I talked about the Brahmani Ghat one, which is a massive 7-foot image, which you can see right here. It's well decorated and cloth image. Now these 2 are other Surya images that are kept in Pitamaheshwar shrine right next to Uttar Manas tank. And then there are some other 9th, 10th century ones. So this image in particular is quite interesting that I'm going to talk a little bit more about, because this is broken, but it also has an inscription on the pedestal. Later images contain a slender body with more elaborate ornamentation marked by the addition of Vanamala as a distinct feature, the addition of attendant deities such as Usha and Pratyusha as a cluster of associated figures, Vidyadharas on the top corners of the back slab in still later periods. An excellent example of this phase is the Surya image found at Mahasthangarh, which was in all likelihood commissioned in Gaya and later transported to North Bengal. This is from Claudine earlier heard today. Another example is an 11th century image that also contains a Navagraha panel at its top, and this image has been discussed in detail by Rick Asher. These examples highlight the changes and evolution of Surya images over time in this region. The abundant details of the later imagery discussed above clearly illustrate the addition of new stylistic features to the Surya images, which facilitated the creation of a distinct regional iconography of in Gaya. Of Gaya. These images also indicate the presence of Surya worshippers in Gaya, who patronized the production of these images and their installation across the city shrines as well as in villages. The first epigraphic reference is from an inscription of the local Brahmana king Vishwarupa or Vishwaditya, who invoked Surya as Martandeya. In fact, the first verse of this inscription is a Mangala, which invokes the power of Surya. This inscription was buried underneath the sanctum of the Gadadhara temple, and only the first few verses were recovered. The recovered verses are exactly similar to verses 2 to 4 of another inscription of the same king, which is currently housed in a small shrine of Narsimha in the Vishnupada temple complex. The only difference is that this inscription invokes goddess Lakshmi. Given this similarity, Sarkar argues that they both may have been similar inscriptions which were erected to eulogize Visva-Aditya. Another inscription issued by the son of Vishwarupa Visva-Aditya, Yakshapala, also invokes Surya with a Mangala. It reads as, "May the sun protect you, he who illuminates the lotus, which is the universe filled with a mass of honey, the objects of sense, having for bees the multitude of living beings, and charming with its leaves the eight regions." This is from Keelhorn. Even though both these inscriptions invoke Surya, their actual purpose was to record the prasasti and highlight the construction activities of their respective patrons. Both Vishwarupa and Yakshapala patronized the construction of multiple temples in Gaya. They are basically part of a Brahmana dynasty that is ruling Gaya as at the same time when Pithipatis are ruling both Gaya, and we have epigraphic evidence of about 4 kings from this dynasty who are there in the 10th, 11th century in Gaya. This last inscription is currently housed in the Shitala Devi Pita Maheshwar temple located at the northwestern bank of the Uttar Manas tank, which also has 3 Surya images. It is likely that the temple may have been constructed at the same time. More importantly, the Brahmana ruling family issued 5 inscriptions, of which 2 invoked Surya, while the remaining 3 invoked Vishnu and Lakshmi. This therefore clearly shows that the Surya and Vishnu continued to be associated together or had a close identity in this region, despite being independent sub-traditions of Hinduism in other regions. This may go back to the older Vedic Upanishadic phase, when Vishnu was considered as a part of the solar tradition. Despite the emergence of Shraddha rituals and their subsequent reformulation around Vaishnavism, sun worship continued to hold its position as an important sub-tradition. Another inscription currently housed in the Sun Temple, which contains a Surya image from the 11th century, is dated to 1373 CE. This inscription begins by invoking Ganapati and Surya, and subsequently records the patronage of a local governor of Gaya named Kulachandra for the repair of the Dakshinaditya for the benefit of his parents. He also claims that his family was a devout worshipper of Vishnu, which then validated the point about the ongoing association between Vishnu and Surya in this region. This may also explain the proliferation of Surya images in and around this region, where they may have been worshipped together at multiple shrines, and we often see them placed side by side, and even within the Vishnupad complex, we have quite a few of Surya images. Harahiyasthan is located a kilometer south of Amethi village and 2 kilometers northwest of Kurkihar village. This site has a new temple with a linga, an old temple made of recycled materials enshrining Durga, and the remains of an old temple dated to the Pala period. The brick remains of the old temple, together with a square brick platform on the ground, appear to have been part of a larger temple at the site, probably of the Pala period, as it was full of broken pieces of sculptures. The sculptural remains at the site included 3 broken images of Surya, 2 of which are from the 7th, 8th century, and I showed you those when I was demonstrating the 7th, 8th century images. And the third one inscribed dates from the 10th century. So the one here, this one, dates from the 10th century. The inscription can be dated paleographically to the mid-10th century, which is also confirmed by the visible iconography of this image. This is a dated inscription of a local ruler, which pays homage to the Aditya and records the gift of this sculpture for the wish fulfillment. It reads as Deya Dharmoyam Vanidaya Ka Suta Pusayata Ka Dadati. All these three images are kept alongside multiple other images of Vishnu, Durga, and Uma Maheshwara at the shrine. Amethi village, located 1 kilometer north of the Hadai shrine and 2 kilometers northwest of Kurkehar, has a Devi temple with 6 Buddhist and several Hindu images. The Surya image from this village clearly exhibits stylistic features of Kurkehar, which indicates that they may have been produced locally at the same atelier as at Kurkehar. Vikram Bauzi, through an analysis of Durga images of Orel and two similar images from Gaya, suggests that this atelier of Kurkehar may have shifted to Gaya later because of Hindu patronage, where several Hindu images, including Surya, were commissioned later. The Hindu images within this village Devi temple include a Surya and Vishnu images. This pattern is replicated in several other villages, including Pali and the shrines of Gaya city. In fact, the Surya image is found alongside not only Vishnu images, but also with the Buddhist ones at multiple sites, including Bodh Gaya. These examples affirm the widely spread practice of Surya worship in the larger landscape of Gaya, which retained its distinct status despite the reformulation of Gaya around Vishnu and the emergence of multiple Buddhist monastic institutions in the broader region. Thank you.